Good morning once more, Lagos. You're tuned in and listening to Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. It's 7:31 today, Monday, the 24th of December. Time to go through our standard national newspaper analysis segment called Freshly Pressed. Joining me in the studio this morning for detailed newspaper analysis, we have Ugo Dre of Nairametrics. Good morning, Ugo Dre.
Hey, good morning.
Nice to have you back. And we have got Cheta Nwaeze in the studio. Good morning, Chickster.
Good morning.
Excellent. Good to have you here as well.
My red pen isn't working.
Your what isn't working?
My red pen.
That's so unfortunate. And so, perhaps if you're less grinchy, Lagos, join us in conversation this morning, right? Use the hashtag freshlypressed981. That is the hashtag to use, freshlypressed981. If you tweet at smooth981fm, or you can also send us a WhatsApp message to 0809 4440981 as we start off in true Christmas fashion with Christmas stories. Christmas anger, frustration over 100% hike in fares. Ugo Dre, I'm coming to you for this one. That's quite a good Grinchy story. How's it going? What are your thoughts on this one?
The headline is somehow,
because it's really about the House of Representative members.
It's not really 100% high for some of us that are flawed, like just ordinary Nigerians. So apparently, members of the House of Rep are very, very furious. They're not happy that they couldn't get their Christmas bonus. And they're like, why would they go through Christmas without their bonus? Especially when you consider that their colleagues, their senior colleagues in the Senate all got their Christmas bonus. Bukola Saraki made sure that they got at least 10 million naira each.
Yes.
So
and
the reps are
bonus,
wondering why can't we get our own Christmas bonus? Come to think about it, people rely on them a lot this period. I mean, according to one of the
they got 10 million each Senate.
Yes, is that what I'm saying? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Actually, no, then we should be
so
angry. I mean,
it was then that their colleagues in the Apex Legislative Chamber went home with about 10 million naira each.
Yes.
So how could you give those ones 10 million naira each and they're not going to get anything?
Why did they give me 10 million naira each?
Here's what one House of Rep guys is. We are serving the people.
I am serving the people.
Come to us from time to time for all manner of assistance, especially financial assistance. In fact, I left the National Assembly in anger and frustration last Thursday. Look, I think we gotta take this thing seriously in this country. Give people their Christmas bonuses.
I'm telling you,
people rely on them a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel their pain.
Okay.
Really do.
There you go. We're done with that story. Let's keep it moving. Up next from Thisday newspaper, battle-weary soldiers are demanding redeployment after 3 years. Now, these are people who are definitely serving the nation, and it's a little bit worrying, the state and condition that they are in. We're talking about battle-weary surviving soldiers of the 175th Task Force Battalion, Metele in Borno State. Over the weekend, they called on military authorities to please redeploy them after 3 years of battling insurgents. They say, we were asked to return to Metele after recent attacks without weapons. How do we dislodge them with bare hands? We've stayed here for 3 years or more and they've not bothered to send a replacement. Does it mean that there's no other military formation to replace us? Cheta, your thoughts on this story?
This is a very tragic story to enter the Christmas season with. It's unfortunately it has become sort of a habit of the military authorities, and it's been a habit for quite a while now. In 2013, I sent one of my staff to Yobe States back then, and that was one of the complaints that the soldiers that he met then had. Recommended reading. There's an excellent piece, 9-page report, How Nigeria Lost Its Way in the War Against Boko Haram. It was published in October in the World Politics Review. Just search for it. And this was one of the things that was highlighted as a big problem in why we're losing the war. Basically, soldiers are supposed to be on 6 to 9 months rotation max. I mean, it's important because they undergo all sorts of trauma during in the battlefield. Shell shock is a standard trauma. That length of time away from family. I mean, all sorts of things. I remember going back to that 2013 story that I referenced. One of the soldiers complained that he was supposed to be at the unit in Ibadan. He was he had been in the front for two years at the time, and he was hearing stories from home that his commanding officer was sleeping with his wife. And when you have those kind of, so he had no way of verifying whether it was true or anything.
Yeah.
As a soldier, he cannot leave, because if he leaves, that becomes desertion, for which he can get shot. And remember that in August, special forces who were battle weary actually mutinied.
They mutinied
in Maiduguri, because they said, we've been going there all the time, we don't want to go. They are all now facing court martial. But we must be human. The soldiers were humans before they were soldiers.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising, because you would think that isn't that why we have tour of duty or whatever?
That's what it's called.
Yes,
6 to 9 months,
6 to 9 months, and then you're rotated, and then you come back,
rest
for another 6 months, and another battalion goes. So I don't know why soldiers have 3 whole years.
That's
who works for 3 straight years without break?
We have soldiers that have been in that front for more than 4 years.
Lagos, as the story so far as we have it, it's really worrying stuff, and we certainly hope that the appropriate military authorities are listening and that they do something. But we'll move on now. Speaking of appropriate authorities, the Guardian newspaper is reporting pressure on INEC to admit observers into the Situation Room. I'm sure we can guess where the pressure is coming from. The People's Democratic Party have specifically urged the Independent National Electoral Commission to grant international and local observers access to its Situation Room during elections. They're saying that the inability of the current administration to have the amendments to the act looked at is what's worrying them. They feel that they're not for democracy or free and fair elections. But of course, INEC saying, listen, the Situation Room is our control mechanism. It's a core activity of the commission. It is simply not open to outsiders. So most likely, this request will be turned down. Cheta, what do you make of this request, the timing of it, and whether it's one that should be taken seriously?
Well, it's a logical request. And given that I personally have been in this Situation Room in Ghana, I don't see why INEC should turn it down. Given that that the coming elections are already contentious, there's no let's not pretend about it. They are already contentious. It behoves INEC to be as open as possible at every point in time. We've had issues of budget delays, equipment delays already. The elections are still about 2 months away. Yet we're already anybody who is really observing the process can see potential issues. So it's in the interest of INEC, for the sake of integrity, for the sake of openness, for the sake of accountability, to allow at the very least international observers, people from NGOs and all of that, CSOs.
You mentioned a few things. One, a contentious process, and the other thing is looking really at the time. Have we ever had an election that was not contentious? Have we ever had an election where we haven't seen delay in not just budgets, but equipment? Because our last elections were postponed entirely.
Yeah, they were postponed entirely, but not because of they were postponed because of the Boko Haram situation.
Okay.
That was the excuse given.
That was yes. Okay.
So see, basically, the difference between this one and any election that I remember, and note that since we transitioned back to democracy, the only election I've not participated in was the 2007 election when I was not living here. The difference between this and every other one is that this is 2 whole months before, and the temperature is already at malaria levels. So that's the difference. Before, it's like closer to the election that the temperature starts rising.
Really?
Yeah. Now it started rising quite early, and the president's refusal to assent to the electoral act amendments hasn't helped at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that, Cheta. Let's see. Moving on now, we've got this next story in. I'm coming to you from the Punch newspaper. But speaking of elections, let's talk about at least some other parties that are not the main two we know of. Olawepo-Hashim is saying that the AD presidential candidate has stepped down for him. That's what's being reported from the Punch newspaper. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so according to Prince Eniola or Jajuni, that's the AD presidential candidate, he said that he stepped down because of his love and patriotism for Nigeria. So he's stepping down for Genga Olawepo-Hashim of the People's Trust. Funny, AD used to be a strong party at some point. It was regional, but they never really had any national presence. Even in the days of for me, this just sort of confirms people who actually criticize multi-party systems.
Okay.
So a lot of these parties will are not really at a level where they should be contesting national election because
Okay.
it doesn't have that party machinery.
Okay.
It's understandable that you open these things so that you can have a lot more people have a shot at presidency or at political office. But to be candid, a lot of these parties are mere charades. They don't just have
What it takes.
what it takes. It could also be the way our laws are construed, because typically you would expect that maybe the funding machinery for these guys doesn't just flow over. So maybe we need to look at party funding as well and
Yes,
see if this can actually help. But
and repercussions for people that go way outside of the limitations that have been set by the law, because that's another issue why people will say that the multi-party system is not working the way it's supposed to, because no one really obeys the rules.
Exactly. And you're going to see a lot more of this happening. Parties endorsing one or the other, parties collapsing into one party and endorsing. And is it really good for election? I mean, really, really tough to know. So for the next couple of years, or for the next couple of election cycles, we'll probably still see PDP and APC dominate. It's going to be very, very tough to have a three-party system in Nigeria.
Okay, we've got messages coming in. Emma from Akoka talking about the representatives and their tough Christmas and Christmas anger, says please give them their Christmas bonuses. Stop maltreating our distinguished elected representatives. It's not good for our democracy, says Emma from Akoka. Thank you, Emma. Ugo from VI says the story of the Badon-based soldier is really sad, actually. Please, let's not allow this story to fade until something is done. We don't know about the Badon aspect of that story. That is a story that was told to an analyst that is not confirmed. But the reality of battle-weary soldiers is true. It didn't make ours this morning, and I can't verify that. But the story of the battle-weary soldiers is true, and we won't let that die out. Yinka says it's not today that these kind of things have been happening in the army. We've heard cases where some military guys keep going from one training outside country to another continuously, and it's simply top level lobbying for favoritism for some set of people, but we don't know how true that is. So I wonder why the army won't respect the tours agreement. I guess if it was me, I would have escaped since. Best of luck with that. While we've got more still coming in from Abayemi Phillips from VI, he says they should be so lucky because it isn't against the law. The 10 million bonus comes to roughly £20,000 sterling each, and they're complaining like sour grapes. Theresa May sees that amount, she'll dance across the Atlantic. Let's keep it moving. Up next from the Daily Times, Buhari inherited 116 abandoned ongoing water projects, says Minister. So our Minister of Water Resources, Suleiman Adamu, on Sunday said the president had inherited about 160 ongoing and abandoned irrigation and water projects from the immediate past government in 2015. He spoke of the liability also inherited by the administration of 89 billion naira, saying that, we're doing our best to sort of complete these. Cheta, what are your thoughts on this particular story? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
It's my own thought after reading the story is first things first, the journalist didn't even do a good job of questioning him. Second, it's this rather irritating blame game thing. Everything is past administration, past administration. Okay, so you inherited 116 abandoned ongoing water projects. How many have you completed? How many have you taken forward?
Well, he says so far, I'm glad to say, probably as much as 20 of these projects in terms of irrigation and water supply have been completed. Other top priority projects are still ongoing.
But then that almost immediately contradicts what the Minister of Agriculture said in November. The Minister of Agriculture said that irrigation constitutes only 2% of all farming activity in Nigeria. And when I think about, for example, irrigation projects in Nigeria which were cited simply because somebody wanted them there. Most famous for me being the Bakolori Dam, which is in today's Zamfara State, for which the Nigerian government of under Shehu Shagari essentially killed about 300 people in order to move them, and the dam was eventually built, and the dam is now not functioning. So we have to understand first things first. This blame game doesn't work. Government is a continuum. You met this on the ground, you continue it. You don't just keep.
But isn't that what's happening? From what I understand from this story, which is part of why it was taken, is that this administration is not credited very often with continuing things. And even though we know government should be a continuum, we know that in the past it hasn't been.
You don't just say, oh, because they do it as a beating of chest thing.
Yes.
It's not meant to be a beating of chest.
No.
Simply sit down, put your head down, and finish the work. And don't keep blaming. That's the problem. Because if we want to say, oh, blame, I get again. I sat here 4 years ago telling people that the government at the time had not done much and they should be voted out. We knew that the government had not done much, which is why we voted them out. So to now, 4 years later, be hearing, oh, they didn't do much. We didn't vote you in to come and play the playing game. We voted you in to work.
Absolutely.
End of story. So all this blame game, all this blame game, all this blame game. Again, the contradictory messages. I just told you what he has said contradicts what the Minister of Agriculture said just a month ago. So that's my problem.
All right, thank you very much for that. Keep it moving. Up next, let's talk airlines. Akwa Ibom State Governor, Mr. Odom Emmanuel, has announced the takeoff of the Akwa Ibom State-owned new airline company. The Vanguard newspaper. Wow. All right, Ugo Dre, let's go into this. He says, let the people say, man, this will be, that's a direct quote, the first state government-owned airline in Africa ready for commercial scheduled flights. I mean, it's a big deal. They say February 2019 is when the third aircraft will join the fleet, in fact. What are your thoughts?
Folu, I mean, this is not something that I'm very excited about.
Why are you not excited? You said let the people say, man.
No, come on, please. What?
No, but no, seriously, what are the problems?
I don't look. I don't support, government in business, albeit government in, airline business, right? Not something I support. I mean, like, we've not just been able to do it well. So even at the federal level, not talk of state, and you're starting with 3 airlines. I mean, and this is an achievement. So, and you're claiming that this is going to be the first state airline in Africa, like it's some kind of achievement. I mean, like, Imo State tried it, and it didn't work.
Them to it a long time ago.
Exactly. I mean, Richards was the first to make the announcement. So, how come you're the one saying you're the first to make that announcement? So, it's not something that I'm particularly pleased about. And I mean,
it shows someone bereft of ideas.
You know the funny thing, it can't be. This was the former CFO of the biggest bank in Nigeria.
And let's also take a look
years ago. So
let's take a look at part of what the story is saying. They're saying, listen, that this is to ensure that our state remains a destination of choice
for foreign investors.
Yeah, right. And even though that seems a bit interesting, I dare to say, is this a tourism move? Because we know a big issue with tourism within
Akwa
our
Ibom
country
State is properly served by existing airlines already.
It can't be a tourism move.
Yeah,
I mean, like, because what you need is not people to jump on, hop on an aircraft as a tourism move. Go and make the state a tourist attraction.
The roads, but you need connectivity. That's a big issue.
People exactly. So but I mean, there are a lot of airlines that can do that. We have local airlines already.
It's not me that announced the aircraft.
Folu, have you been to Uyo?
No, I have not.
People reach the state already. I mean, I've been to Uyo 4 times this year. 3 times I landed in a plane. So it's not as if there's a shortage of airlines.
So what they want to do with this is what I just can't
understand.
And you know what he says? I was looking at his wiki page and they listed some achievements, and one of them is best shop right at Tropical.
Like I said, bereft of ideas.
That is an major.
Okay, let's carry on. Thank you. Up next, something that could be an achievement, is it? But we don't know that it necessarily has happened. From the Guardian newspaper, the federal government is moving to meet the United Nations ratio on policing. That's 1 police officer to 400 people. The federal government is trying to recruit about 10,000 policemen, but that's still not near where our police force should be. However, Cheta, what are your thoughts on this story?
Again, I think you're jumping the gun. There is currently a bill to reform the police that's sitting in front of the National Assembly. I've participated in the public hearing of that bill. It's a very important bill because the existing Police Act was essentially passed in 1943.
Yes, before Nigeria was a country.
Nigeria was a country in 1943. I don't think any of us...
That was an amalgamation of North and South. We're not the Federal Republic.
We are still not a country if we want to pursue that line of argument. Let's move on. I don't think that any of us in this room, even Ugo, we thought his white hair was born in 1943. So
why is he putting your
that is the first thing that we need to list, because one very critical aspect of that bill is community policing. The bill recognizes the fact that the federal police system has failed. It also recognizes the fact that we, at 3 different points since we returned to democracy in 1999, we mass recruited people into the police. And each time we mass recruited people into the police, they were poorly trained, they were poorly remunerated, and it ended up being backfiring. So why do we want to do the same thing that has clearly failed over again? Why not just have that patience? Yes, I granted Nigeria is under-policed, but the first thing we should be doing is looking at Balana Allah's bill and getting it passed first, so that we can recruit these new policemen under the right conditions, so that they will be effective.
Yes, the right conditions and being effective. Those are key watchwords. Thank you very much for that, Cheta. I'll take a few more messages that have come through. Bamigele from Lagos says, first of all of us blame, but he also says Akwa Ibom is deceiving itself as to this airline business, he says. Henry Emmanuel sends in a message to say, I expect more presidential candidates to step down in the coming months. Since we've decided on a multi-party system, can't we do it like other countries? At least there should be higher criteria to get any candidate to the ballot. Also, he says, I don't know if the usual ballot paper will be sufficient for all the candidates. Maybe a ballot booklet? Perhaps that's looking at practical realities. Alkru says, so state government wants to keep their own airfares within their coffers, so it seems. Okay. Amaka Chimaobi from Oludia Papa says, it's obvious that this present administration wasn't prepared before they came on board. All their ministers are busy complaining about past regime, and they think that Nigerians can be deceived again. Please, affliction can rise again for the second. All we ask for is transparency from INEC. Indeed, that is the call. Now, speaking of transparency, let's talk about smuggled rice, which each Christmas should come up. I'm very surprised Cheta isn't taking this, but I'm sure he will weigh in on this one. So the Nigerian Navy forward operating base in the Ibakambo local government area in Akwa Ibom State has seized another 358 bags of smuggled rice and apprehended 4 suspected smugglers in 2 separate operations. Now, we know that our borders are out for us, but Ugo Dr, your thoughts on this one?
Cheta, I'm not sure you know that Captain Yusuf Idris is actually a specialist in catching smugglers of rice. Do you know that?
Wow.
In January 2018, he caught people smuggling 759 bags of rice.
Only Captain?
Yeah.
No,
and then in October again, 210 bags of rice. So
yeah,
let's just
rice particularly is his specialty. He doesn't
very
catch
good
those that smuggle
if
cars.
you just
Rice.
any bag of rice, he will catch you. And his PR
they
guys
catch you on
always.
They also catch you
press.
in the so for example, you're going to the east and you have bags of rice for people in your village. They catch you.
But the most serious for me, I mean, check online. Anytime he catches smugglers of bags of rice, he's always in the news.
I think we need to check this guy and why he has the tip on rice.
Just Google Captain Yusuf Idris. You would see
Yusuf
that
Idris.
he is very good at catching smugglers of rice.
Dear relevant authorities.
Yeah, 758, 200, 10 bags, 20 bags, 40 bags, whatever it is.
One bag.
Once it captures them, it's in the news. So INEC is the Navy captain. So you gotta respect that. I mean,
do we? Must we?
National
Must we?
For catching.
A lot of questions for Captain Yusuf. But of course, this is a Christmas period. We know that there will be.
It's gonna be an increase. But I mean, it's all year round. So bags, smuggled rice is something that
we're now the highest producers of rice in the world. So
not necessarily, but I mean, Nigeria has gone from being the highest importer of rice in West Africa to being one of the least, and so a lot of that's why rice comes to being, isn't it? And
I don't know what's happening. I'm just saying that.
So what I mean, kudos
since
to
the
Captain,
success of the
keep protecting our borders. I think one day the government will recognize your hard work, and
that's a future real admiral. So stop yelling.
Well, no one is. Well, I'm just very curious as to Captain Yusuf's efficacy.
He's a hard worker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just Google him.
Like
So I'm not joking. So don't think
you.
this is just a kind of joke.
No. We certainly know that it's not. We've got lots of messages coming in. Someone says shaking my head first up, right? Nigerian government is a bit of a joke. There you go. Chuku Ofia says, I'm impressed with the Ibom airline idea. Though government has no business in business, can we think of helping government to succeed in business? Yes, we can, says Chuku. I like that. Very positive. Quite positive and upbeat. While Crew says, is somebody suggesting that Captain is an insider? We're only asking questions as to how come Captain is so efficient at finding rice. While Yinka says, do I sense sarcasm in here in the studio? Who will be this Captain Yusuf? Does he catch gun smugglers? Nope. Just rice smugglers. That's what we're discovering. While Bamidele from Lagos says, the Nigerian police force is okay. He's suffering from a Nigerian disease, which I need not mention. Clowns as governors, he says. Akru says, Cheta, I do like your analysis on police recruitment, but the issue is that people in charge are not aware that there are problems, hence their repeated line of action. Or crews, perhaps they're aware, but Henry Manuel says, Folu, please give Ugo Dr something called for his savage analysis on Captain Yusuf. Perhaps we'll see if we can sort that out. But just like that, we've actually come to the end of Fresh and Pressed in good time for the first time, I think, this year.
Yeah,
ever has.
it's
Exciting
it's
stuff.
Christmas
Better late
Express.
than never.
I don't know what we should do now with ourselves.
Christmas Express. So we can
Christmas
just go and
time.
get ready for Christmas.
Excellent,
This
okay.
is the only. This is the, I think the only day in the year where you get to close early. Is it okay?
I wouldn't know.
then
This is my
New
first
Year.
Christmas in Lagos for like
Oh,
20 years.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what usually happens
Mm.
at Christmas.
Mm.
Yeah. So I mean, there's no traffic till about evening. People stay indoors. So you stay indoors and spend time
That's
with your
today or tomorrow.
No,
Today.
So today until
In
tomorrow.
preparation for
Make sure
tomorrow.
that you've got all your gifts ready.
Yeah.
Line them up behind
That's
the
it.
Christmas tree so that your kids
He looks
can
very
go there.
confused.
And tell them that it's Santa. Santa came in the middle of the night.
Oh, we don't have
That's
chimney.
That's the story. No, just
No,
we
he
don't
comes
need
in through the
chimney.
door
So
here.
we're not.
Here's the door
we're
he
not,
uses.
He keeps
it's not
the
a
door
white
down.
Christmas. Just tell your kids that Santa came and dropped those things there.
Yes, they've been asking.
And then when
for
they
Santa.
grow up, you explain to them that it was all right.
Lagos, please. I hope no one's children are in the car as we're done with Freshly Pressed for this morning. People destroying Christmas trees there. Thank you very much, Ugo Dr. Metrics. I guess this is what we get when you've been away for a while. Cheta, who may or may not be here throughout the week. We'll figure it out. It's a guest in for us all. But please find them both on social media. You can find Ugo Dre as @UgoDre. You can find Cheta as Chickster. And you can find me as Folu Storms, but also right here on the airwaves. Because coming up next, we'll be talking sports inside the locker room. Good morning.